Smash.
About a month ago, internet funny man Markiplier set the world of content creation ablaze with this video where he played Smash or Pass with all Pokemon Gens 1 through 8. This led to what I have dubbed the Smashening, where content creators across all platforms have been replicating and reacting to this escapade. Instead of sexually objectifying Pokemon, I wanted to take things back to the core of these games and objectify them as tools of war. For those who haven't heard of a hardcore Nuzlocke, the rules are on screen now. They'll also be in the description down below if you'd like to refer back to them. Markiplier decided that out of the original 151 Pokemon, 13 of them were smashable, so here are our encounters. Fire Red and Leaf Green have version exclusive Pokemon. Lucky for us, there's an even split of 2-2 here, so I went with Leaf Green for Ninetales and Weepinbell instead of Fire Red's Arbok and Cloyster. Let me know if I made the right choice in the comments down below. I won't be allowed to use any pre-evolutions of these Pokemon in trainer battles unless they're explicitly on this list. Also, I won't be allowed to evolve Weepinbell because, well...
Pass!
Since many of these Pokemon can't be obtained until later levels, I decided to make my starter the first base form Pokemon we can catch, Diglett. Finally, I don't use legendaries in my playthroughs, but you can't catch Mewtwo until after the Elite Four, so that doesn't really matter in this case. Now let's see if these Pokemon have more going for them than just good looks. I name myself Mark and grab our Diglett, who we call Yup. Unfortunately, our little mole boy loses to our rival, Furry, but we haven't gotten Pokeballs yet, so this is a non-issue. Diglett actually has a few things going for it. It's a lot faster than pretty much every Pokemon we'll see in the early game, and its ground typing plus early access to Magnitude mean we should have no problems with Brock. Before that though, we do catch ourselves a Weedle. I'm not judging here, but I can't wrap my head around why Markiplier said he'd smash Beedrill. This thing has giant stingers for hands, not to mention the one attached to its pelvis. Getting near this bug poison type means certain death, but hey, maybe that's what gets him going. While grinding outside of Pewter City, Weedle evolved into Kakuna and then Beedrill, so we have two viable team members. At level 14, it was time to take on Brock. Diglett opens with a Magnitude 7, which only brings Geodude down to the yellow. Fortunately, the Swole Rock only used Defense Curl, so we were able to take it out with another click of Magnitude, getting a 9 this time. For those who don't know, the higher the number Magnitude, the higher the base power. As you can see, getting a 9 or 10 is actually stronger than the best ground-type move in this game, Earthquake, having a base power of 100. But obviously, those have a very low chance of being rolled. Anyway, Onix is next, and we roll an 8 to bring the Rock Snake down to the yellow as well. After missing a Rock Tomb, which would have lowered our speed, we come up short with a Magnitude 5 and Onix lives on 1 HP. This time Rock Tomb connects, but we still outspeed and Brock doesn't heal, so a Magnitude 6 grants us our first badge. Beedrill's moveset is honestly pretty bad, but he will learn Twin Needle down the line, which is his saving grace. Trust me, if you're doubting him, just stick around to see what Y can do. We make our way through Route 3 and Mount Moon without any issues, praise Lord Helix, and arrive at Cerulean. I need to take on my rival and get through Nugget Bridge before the gym because on Route 5 I can catch a Bellsprout. This gross little weed evolves into the beautiful Weepinbell at our level cap of 21, so we'll be able to use it to take down Misty's water types. Before taking on Furry for the second time, it's very important that I teach Diglett the Rock Tomb TM we got from Brock. Our rival's lead is Pidgeotto, who's super effective against Beedrill, so we need to use Yup to take it out. Obviously, I can't use ground-type moves against the bird, so Rock Tomb will be our only hope. Quick Attack hits for just under half our health as we connect our first Rock Tomb for 50% of Pidgeotto's. Next turn, Quick Attack doesn't come out, so we can KO Furry's lead with another Rock Tomb. Now Squirtle comes in, so I switch into Beedrill, who's met with a Withdraw. At level 20, Y learned Twin Needle, so we fire a few off to knock out the starter. A Tail Whip and Tackle combo does decent damage to our bug, but we're still in pretty good shape against Abra. Since this thing only has Teleport, which doesn't do damage, I take the time to harden up to +6 defense before killing the Psychic type with a Twin Needle. Last is Rattata, but after my defense boosts, its Quick Attack only does 3 damage. One Twin Needle is all it takes to get the kill, and now we can progress through Nugget Bridge. None of these battles were difficult, so I pop over to Route 5 where I can catch Bellsprout. Hold on, did you see that Pokedex number? Meet Vortex. After evolving into our usable Weepinbell, it was time to thrash Misty. After Staryu pointlessly hardens, Vortex Vine Whips it into its grave. Starmie is next, and after a Swift, I see that Vine Whip will be just shy of a 2-shot. Since we can live 2 more Swifts, I decide to set up a Growth to boost my special attack. With 17 HP left, one last Vine Whip wins us the battle, and it was even a crit for good measure. So far, so good. After getting an SSN ticket from this Clefairy, it's time for our third rival battle. Again, I lead Diglett, who Rock Tombs Pidgeotto for just over half its health, and I get sand attacked in return. After a quick attack, we luckily connect our second rain of boulders, burying the bird. Naturally, Wartortle is next, but now we have Vortex to eat up Water Gun. After a withdrawal, we connect Sleep Powder, and I get to work setting up a few growths. Even at +2 special attack, we can't one-shot the starter, but it stays asleep, so one more whip gets the job done. Kadabra has Confusion now, which is super effective against both my Weepinbell and Beedrill. I go into the latter since he has the super effective Twin Needle, and luckily am met with a useless Disable. Y is faster than the Psychic type and actually manages to kill it with just the first of his 2 hits. Last is Raticate, who survives Twin Needle and hits a hefty Hyper Fang, but too little too late as Beedrill wins us this one with another Twin Needle. We all know what happens in the captain's room. Let's just take cut and go battle Surge. Diglett opens with a big magnitude 9 to Oko Voltorb before it could use Screech or get damage off with Sonic Boom. Pikachu is at a much lower level, and just to insult the Lieutenant, Yup rips off another magnitude 9. Last is Raichu, and since we rolled a 6 for magnitude, this rat gets to live for now. After double teaming, Surge heals his ace, and we get even worse luck than our last attack, rolling a 5. Regardless, our next magnitude is an 8, which is more than enough to KO Raichu. Wow, Diglett really loves critting to kill. It's pretty crazy that in a casual playthrough, you can just catch a Diglett in its namesake cave and absolutely roll the third gym. Anyway, from here we're off to Rock Tunnel, and after obliterating this Pokemaniac's Charmander, Yup evolves into Dugtrio. After making our way through the tunnel, we pass through Lavender Town and can finally catch another Pokemon, Vulpix. At our level cap of 29, Chad here learned Flamethrower, so then I slap him with a Firestone and he evolves into Ninetales. While not as good as its Fire Red counterpart, Ninetales does get some pretty good tech with Will-O-Wisp and Confuse Ray, so I'm definitely not complaining. Time to absolutely decimate Erika. All it takes is 3 Flamethrowers to KO her Victory Bell, Tangela, and Vileplume. Something about this feels familiar. Well, time for Rocket Hideout. Award for Best Actor of the Year goes to this Rocket Grunt, and now we come face to face with Giovanni. His Onix outspeeds Vortex, but just uses Rage to start things off, so we're pretty much free to start using Growth. After a Harden, we're at +2. We tank a Rock Throw and drop the boss's lead with Vine Whip. Next is Rhyhorn, who also dies to Vine Whip, and then Kangaskhan comes in. Even at +2, it's looking like we have a 4-shot here, so I eat a second bite and go for Sleep Powder. One Vine Whip later, the mother wakes up and drops our defense with Tail Whip. This slap of a vine isn't enough to seal the deal, and now I decide it's safest to switch into Chad. Good call, because that Mega Punch really would have hurt. From here we fire off a quick attack, get the Silph Scope, and drive the evil team out of Celadon City. Now it's time to backtrack to Lavender Town, where Furry's been waiting to battle us. After Pidgeotto's quick attack, we miss our first Rock Tomb, which is unfortunate but not run ending. Next turn we connect, but come up just short of the one-shot, so we have to take a Gust from our rival's lead. Another quick attack brings Dugtrio into the yellow, but we connect a second Rock Tomb to KO the bird. Wartortle is next, so naturally we switch to Vortex to soak up the Water Gun. Since we're 7 levels higher, I decide not to Growth and just use Vine Whip, which does really good damage. After a bite, it just takes one more to get our second kill. The third Pokemon is Execute, so I switch into Chad. After setting up a useless Reflect, we incinerate the bundle of eggs with Flamethrower, and Kadabra comes in. I simply swap to Beedrill, who gets mesmerized by Kinesis and then KOs the Psychic type with Twin Needle. Last is Growlithe, but since Dugtrio is low on health and at risk of dying to a crit, I bring Ninetales back in. After being leered, I decide to play the slow game with Confuse Ray, but the dog breaks out and lowers my defense again. Next turn I use a quick attack and Growlithe hits itself, conveniently bringing it within range of dying to one last hit. After saving Mr. Fuji from Team Rocket, he gives us the Pokeflute, so now we can continue on our journey. You can actually progress a few different ways from here, but I decided it was time for our next encounter. On Route 13, I run into Ditto, who's actually going to have an interesting role later on. For now, we name it Anything and continue on to Fuchsia City. I grab the gold teeth and the HM for Surf in the Safari Zone, and then after giving the Warden back his teeth, he grants us strength. After finishing up that errand, I fly back to Saffron and enter the fighting gym since we can get another encounter here. These battles are actually pretty tough, but since I have Ninetales' Will-O-Wisp to inflict burn, we should be okay. The leader of this dojo has a Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee, both at level 37. I connect a turn 1 Will-O-Wisp against the kicking Pokemon, which is huge. It responds with Mind Reader, and after a Confuse Ray, it just uses a second Mind Reader. Super weird. Next, Chad fires off a Flamethrower and Hitmonlee uses Focus Energy. Since it never bothered to try attacking, we take it down with a quick attack and now Hitmonchan comes in. I decided to test Flamethrower's damage to see if it would be a 2-shot, and after doing just under half the boxer's health, it lands a critical hit Sky Uppercut, killing Chad. I feel like this death definitely could have been avoidable, and it's a shame because Ninetales was the only fire type I had access to in this run. All I can really do now is bring in Dugtrio, who I know will outspeed, and hope for a high roll on Magnitude. We get an 8, which is enough to close this battle out, but I don't think the casualty was worth the prize. After defeating Koichi, I can grab my own Hitmonchan and add him to the party. Interesting taste, Markiplier. Honestly, before the physical special split, Hitmonchan from a coverage perspective is bad. It gets access to the elemental punches, but they're all special, and this thing has an abysmal base special attack stat of 35. But I won't complain about having access to stab fighting. I take some time to grind the team up to level 40, and now it's time to take on Silph Co. By clearing this out before the 5th and 6th gyms, I'll be able to add Lapras to the team, who's probably the best Pokemon I have access to in this challenge. But first I need to get through Furry, and his team has had quite the upgrade. Our opening hasn't changed, as Rock Tomb does exactly half of the newly evolved Pidgeot's health, but then it uses Feather Dance to lower our attack by 2 stages. Now I have to swap, so I choose Hitmonchan since he'll outspeed. Wing Attack does over half, but fighting is neutral against the bird since it's half normal type. I click Sky Uppercut, which gets the kill, so we're still in this. When Execute comes in, I swap to Beedrill, who dodges Stun Spore. Then a 4 times effective Twin Needle scrambles these eggs. At a 5 level advantage, Y outspeeds the frightening Alakazam, so another Twin Needle means another KO. Now it's Growlithe, but I have a Dugtrio at full health. Flame Wheel actually does good damage, but there's no way this pup is surviving a Magnitude 9. Last is the newly evolved Blastoise, but I've got Vortex in the back. Just like old times, we eat up Water Gun, and after a bite, the turtle takes a nap. I set up 2 growths while Blastoise sleeps, making Vine Whip a 2-hit kill. The starter never wakes up, as it less than blissfully gets murdered in its sleep, winning us the battle. I'd like your finest Lapras, please.
Why are you looking at me like that?
After grinding Smolder up to level 40, let's take on Giovanni. He opens with Nidorino, who hits Fury Attack, as Lapras' Ice Beam is just short of a kill. Next turn, Horn Attack tickles us and we get the KO with Surf. Rhyhorn is up next, but the 4 times effective Surf washes it away, and now Nidoqueen hits the field. It kicks things off with Tail Whip and then survives Ice Beam into yellow. Luckily, its moveset is pretty bad, as it uses Poison Sting before dying to Surf. Kangaskhan also Tail Whips to bring Lapras down to -2 defense, and then gets hit with Ice Beam for around 60%. The defense drops are making me a little nervous, so I swap it to Hitmonchan, who's just met with another Tail Whip. Sky Uppercut finishes off the Rocket Boss's last Pokemon, and that's Silph Co saved. Before I can use Surf outside of battle, we need to beat Koga, so let's jump back over to Fuchsia. Koga and Sabrina have the same leveled Ace, so even though the level cap is 43, none of my Pokemon are at that yet. The lead Coughing has Levitate, so I can't use Dugtrio to start. Not an issue, as Lapras KOs the ball of sludge with an Ice Beam. Now Muck comes out, so it's time to bring in my moles. Minimize raises evasiveness, and even though we roll a pretty average Magnitude 6, the move crits to get a quick kill. Another Coughing means I go back to Smolder, and although he gets Toxic, he can Surf on the next turn for a 1-shot. Last is the Ace Weezing, who takes about 75% from Ice Beam and decides Smokescreen is its best move here. After a Hyper Potion, Lapras actually gets a critical hit Surf to kill the last Pokemon, so that's a very smooth Koga battle. Now we detour to the power plant to catch the first Magnemite we run into. Yup. At level 30, this little guy evolves into 3 little guys, which I guess makes him bankable? Time to bring back my favorite vice. I legitimately spend all my money at the Celadon Game Corner and end up with 3,500 tokens. I need 4,000 to buy the TM for Thunderbolt, so I guess we've got a little work to do. I'm actually able to hit 2 jackpots quickly, so I didn't waste too much of my life here. this time. I teach Thunderbolt to balls and didn't even bother grinding the team to 43 before taking on Sabrina. Remember earlier when I said to stick around to see what Beedrill can do? Check this out. A crit Twin Needle starts us off strong by killing Kadabra. Next, Mr. Mime is taken out by the same and her ace Alakazam comes in. We outspeed this monster even though we're 2 levels lower, and after our first hit of Twin Needle does over half, the next gets an unnecessary crit to make sure this thing is unable to battle. Last is Venomoth, so I bring in Balls since Beedrill can't do much of anything to it. After taking a not very effective Psybeam, Thunderbolt is just short of a kill, so we need to tank one more. I decide to Sonic Boom on the heal to do the chip I need in order to KO the Moth with one more Thunderbolt. Honestly, that Sabrina fight was really easy. Thanks for the Beedrill. The next 2 gyms are pretty much a cakewalk as long as you have a water type, so let's see what Lapras does against Blaine. The fire type gym leader opens with Growlithe, but its Intimidate won't matter as it gets dropped by a single Surf from Smolder. Next is Ponyta, who dies the same way. Unsurprisingly, Rapidash outspeeds, but it actually manages to land Fire Blast for some damage before dying. Last is Arcanine, who also connects Fire Blast and a crit to boot, leaving us with only 18 HP. Good thing a single Surf also kills Blaine's ace, or else we could have been in some serious trouble. Sorry Bill, there's nothing smashable on the Sevi Island, so we're moving on to face Giovanni one last time. Surf is able to one-shot his entire team of ground Pokemon with only Nidoking and Dugtrio outspeeding to land Earthquakes for minimal damage before dying. The only thing standing between us and the Elite Four now is our rival in Victory Road. Speaking of furry, here he is now. I didn't want my team to be too high leveled for this fight, so I got everyone up to 50 and jumped in. Since we finally have balls, I don't need to rely on Dugtrio's Rock Tomb, so we can freely T-Bolt to KO Pidgeot. Growlithe is next, and Magneton really wouldn't appreciate getting flamethrowered, so I switch Lapras into a questionable Leer. One Surf later and we have a KO. I wonder why the AI brings Rhyhorn in next. Maybe because Rock is super effective against Ice, but doesn't it know it has a 4 times weakness? After another Drowning Execute comes out, but I decide to stay in and OHKO with an Ice Beam. I think Lapras is tanky enough to deal with Alakazam, and after a pathetic attempt to disable my Ice Beam, I use Body Slam for around 60% of its health. Next turn he actually disables Body Slam, so I swap into Beedrill, who survives the Psychic. Barely. Regardless, we know we outspeed here, so all it takes is a Twin Needle to leave Furry with only his Blastoise. Magneton is the better option than Weepinbell here. Even though I taught him Giga Drain, Thunderbolt is still stronger and Magneton's stats are better, but after tanking a Water Gun, our Thunderbolt leaves the turtle with just a bit of health. A second Water Gun brings us into the yellow, but since our rival doesn't heal, it just takes one last zap of lightning to win this fight. Victory Road ends up being a breeze for my team, so it's finally time for the last stretch. Lorelei is the last battle I'm actually able to edge my EXP against, and I use rare candies between each Elite Four member to get up to the new level cap instead of deciding on a single level before entering the endgame. Also, here's a quick look at the final team before entering. I think it's pretty expected, and remember I told you Ditto would have a big role to play, so it's on the squad instead of Weepinbell. With everyone on the cusp of level 55, I walk up to the Ice-type Master and challenge her to a battle. She leads Dugong, and I'm sure you're all thinking Magneton is coming out, but I actually kick things off with Hitmonchan. He outspeeds the Seal and connects Sky Uppercut for a one-shot, while Magneton's Thunderbolt was only about a 50% chance to KO. Now Slowbro comes in because the AI sees Psychic is super effective against fighting, but this thing's only Psychic-type move is Amnesia. I still swap to Balls since Interest can't do much here, but the special defense boost is going to be difficult to deal with. I start things off with a Thunder Wave, but Slowbro is unfazed as it yawns Magneton. In order to avoid falling asleep, I swap into Lapras as the Hermit Crab Pokemon is paralyzed. Body Slam does pretty bad damage, but now Slowbro sets up another Amnesia to get its special defense to +4. My next Body Slam is met with a yawn, but I think I have Slowbro low enough for Beedrill to finish it off now. Interestingly enough, Lorelei hard reads me and goes for the second yawn, but I'm determined to take this thing out. I click Twin Needle, and after the first one, it doesn't look like my gamble is gonna pay off, but then a crit. Absolutely massive from Y. He's really been pulling his weight throughout this challenge. Now it's time for a well-deserved nap as Cloyster hits the field. I see Lorelei is playing a version of Smash or Pass herself. I swap to Magneton, making Protect useless and kill the Bivalve Pokemon with a single Thunderbolt. Lorelei's Ace Lapras is next, so I quickly paralyze it to try to make it easier to deal with. Next turn, Thunderbolt comes very close to killing, but Lapras hangs on and breaks through paralysis to confuse balls. A Citrus Berry into full restore combo gets Lapras back to 100% as we break through confusion and fire off another Thunderbolt, bringing it back to the red and re-paralyzing it, which I love to see. Another full restore comes out, and this time we hit ourselves, so Lapras gets to survive at least 2 more turns. After yet another T-Bolt, we get crit surfed, doing huge damage. Afraid of another full restore coming out, I swap my own Lapras in, whose water absorb renders Surf useless. Here I make the worst misclick of all time as I accidentally press Surf instead of Body Slam, which based off her Lapras' damage would have killed. Since it isn't at full health, Water Absorb actually brings it back up to around 30%, making my life a lot tougher than it needs to be. We trade Body Slams, but mine gets the paralysis, so now we outspeed and it just takes 1 more to finally KO the transport Pokemon. All that's left is Jinx, who lovely kisses Lapras to sleep before I can use Perish Song. The kiss into a track combo is something I think Markiplier could appreciate, but since Jinx can really only do damage with the 4 times resisted Ice Punch, I have no worries staying in and using Perish Song. Jinx puts us back to sleep, so we really just need to stall until the Perish counter ends things. After another Ice Punch, I switch to Hitmonchan, whose Jinx's last kiss as Perish Song wins us this battle. Not that it was particularly difficult, but I definitely needed to keep a cool head while navigating my way through that one. Now it's time for one of my least favorite trainers in all of Pokemon, Bruno. Before starting this one up, I teach Aerial Ace to Beedrill in case we need him to go toe-to-toe with any of the fighting types. I lead with Hitmonchan, who's able to Sky Uppercut kill not just Onix number 1, but also Bruno's stronger Onix. In a Hitmonchan mirror match, our Sky Uppercut comes up just short of a kill, but I get played for a fool here as counter decimates our boxer. I decide to go to Dugtrio and Slash as Bruno heals Hitmonchan, but we get decent damage off. Next turn, a crit Earthquake, which Yup learned at level 51 gets the kill, and now it's Hitmonlee's turn to die to the same. Last is the terrifying Machamp, who actually takes Earthquake really well and destroys Dugtrio with Cross Chop. 3 of my 4 surviving Pokemon are weak to fighting, but I can't risk Beedrill since Forearms also has Rock Tomb. I decide to go with my best special attacker, Magneton, and after a Citrus Berry, all I can do is hope Thunderbolt is enough. Wow, lots of opportune crits for me in this run, but this one might just be the most needed. You may think losing Dugtrio before Agatha is really bad, but most of her team has Levitate or is a flying type, so the ground type wouldn't be that great. So what am I gonna do against her lead Gengar? It's Ditto time, baby. The first Gengar's only attacking move is Shadow Punch, which can't hit my normal type Ditto, so after the Ghost double teams, I'm free to use Transform. Now everything about me is the same as the Gengar in front of us, aside from our HP. That's the only thing Transform won't copy. I win the turn 1 speed tie and get a hefty Shadow Punch off to bring Gengar into the yellow as it foolishly sets up a second double team. Shadow Punch can't miss, so after a Hyper Potion from Agatha, I click the move twice more and Ditto takes our first kill. Golbat comes in, giving us a great opportunity to switch to Magneton as we eat up Bite like it's nothing. After a second, it just takes a single Thunderbolt to get our second KO. There's nothing scary about Haunter as the stage 1 Ghost also dies to just 1 bolt. The Ace Gengar is next, but after missing Hypnosis, we get another timely crit to one-shot this nightmare. Last is Arbok, who really poses no threat. We Thunderbolt to get it into the yellow, and after being screeched, one last electric attack kills the Cobra and brings us one step closer to becoming champion. Now we have our first run-in with any dragon types against Lance. Lucky for us, we've got Lapras, but this one didn't exactly play out like I thought it would. Obviously, a Magneton lead is expected to KO Gyarados with a 4 times effective Thunderbolt, and it's an unnecessary crit to boot. Dragonair is next, so it's time for Smolder to go to work. Dragon Rage chips off 40 health, and then after Outrage does about the same, we KO with Ice Beam. Aerodactyl is next, who dangerously outspeeds us and hits a super effective Ancient Power. Good thing there was no boost, or else I'm not sure we would have killed with a single Surf. Dragonair Thunder Waves us, but we break through the paralysis to drop the Serpent with Ice Beam. Now Lance's ace Dragonite comes in, and being at such low HP and paralyzed, I can't leave Lapras out there. After looking at who's left on the team, I hatch up a plan. I send Ditto out and hope it survives an attack. Hyper Beam brings us down to 37 HP, but that's step 1 complete. I got really lucky that Dragonite used Hyper Beam since it has to recharge, so instead of just killing me, I get to use Transform. Ditto wins the speed tie to use Outrage, and then in a blaze of glory dies to Wing Attack. This was a necessary sacrifice since now I can bring in Magneton, and after a Citrus Berry I cross my fingers as the neutral Thunderbolt proves to be enough to KO the dragon. Thank you Ditto, your death won't be in vain. After basically steamrolling through this game, I never would have guessed we'd only have 3 Pokemon left for the champion, but I think we match up pretty well. I use my Soul Lepa Berry to bring Thunderbolt back to 13 PP and dive into our final battle. Win or lose, this is it. As expected, Balls has no issues with Pidgeot as we get a Thunderbolt kill. Next is Arcanine, so the obvious switch is to Lapras as a neutral flamethrower does around 50 damage. After a second, we get burned, but as a special attacker, this isn't too concerning and Surf knocks the Fire Dog out. Rhydon also gets washed away, and when Exeggutor comes in, I decide to stay in and sack Lapras after an Ice Beam, but it actually kills. Cool. Alakazam outspeeds, so Psychic does finally kill Smolder, but he had an amazing run. I've been hanging on to Beedrill just for this moment, and he doesn't disappoint, still outspeeding and killing with Twin Needle. All that's left now is Blastoise, but since I can't do good damage with Beedrill, I just focus energy and take a Hydro Pump. At 70 health, I have no qualms about using Endeavor here to bring the last Pokemon down to the same before Y finally meets his end. A Citrus Berry brings Blastoise back over half health, but there's no way it survives a Thunderbolt from Balls who's able to wrap things up. And there you have it. Not only did Markiplier swipe right on these Pokemon, they're also strong enough to complete a hardcore Nuzlocke of Leaf Green. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps out. In a world overrun by monotype hardcore Nuzlockes, I hope this was a fun change of pace. I definitely enjoyed playing through the challenge. If you like different kinds of Nuzlockes, I've done some mono ability ones in the past and would love to keep bringing new kinds to the community. Let me know what you want to see in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, any challenge can be beaten if you just use your head.